YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, regrading each first round pick from the 2019 NFL Draft. Gonna give each player that was picked a performance grade based on the rookie season, and we're gonna grade the value of each pick. We'll also take a look at the grades I gave out originally in April, immediately after the first round ended. So a lot to go over, look at here. Can't wait to do it. Before we get started, we have two channels now. We have this channel and the Goat House Plus. We're trying to reach that 40K sub goal on both. Once we do hit it on both, I'll release my full draft grade. So every team's grade on every single pick there, and we'll break all that down. Full NFL content here. Predicted every game all year long, still predicting for the playoffs, so if you can check that out. Got all kinds of previews, rankings, and more to come. We're going to cover the offseason, the NFL draft fully, of course, and there's our Twitter as well. There's a link in the description for the channel and the Twitter. Check it out. Give us a follow. Every single day talking football on that Twitter. It's a must follow, so help us out there. We would really appreciate it. Let's go to the first pick, and we'll kind of explain what we're doing here. The first pick was Kyler Murray, of course, the Arizona Cardinals, and you see at the bottom my original value grade. You know, at the time you have to grade based on value. Looking at my board and what do I think of the pick, I gave a B+ for the value grade at the time. You know, the day after the first round ended, I did that. So the B+. And then for the value grade now, I gave out an A. And why I bumped it up was because, you know, why it originally was a B+, it's still a good grade. You know, it wasn't super high because, you know, I think, you know, looking at my board, Murray wasn't, you know, the first overall player. So looking at my board is a little bit of a reach, but now here we're looking at it now, and it was the clear right choice. You know, it was the clear right choice. There was really no other option for them at quarterback. You know, there were some other quarterbacks that looked promising. You know, Daniel Jones, who we'll talk about a little bit, looked a little better than we thought. Drew Lock, who I liked, looked pretty solid, but there was really no other option for the Cardinals here. So that's why the value of the pick, I give it an A. And then based off his rookie season, based off his play, I gave it a B+. You know, he had his moments here and there, started to heat up at the end, except for the games he was kind of hurt. But it looks like a bright future. You know, the value grade is just, it's mainly grading the team on the pick. The performance grade is on the player. You know, a little bit of potential kind of goes into that value grade. That's kind of what the value grade is, what I value most here. That's what I value most because we look at the original grade, it's purely off value because we haven't seen him play yet. So those are my grades for Kyler Murray here after a year later. Obviously, we can't make a complete and full judgment off the players based off 1 year, but this is a so far grade. Nick Bosa, second pick to the Niners. You see the original value grade was an A for me. That was the original grade, an A. And the reason it wasn't an A+ is because that's kind of where we expected him to go. You know, there was it's kind of a question. Was he the best player in the draft? You know, people had Quinn Williams had potential to be, Josh Allen. You know, there's people that even had Kyler Murray towards the top there. So I mean, there wasn't extreme value in that pick for the Niners. You know, they should make that pick. That's kind of what we expected to happen, so I gave it an A. This time around, why do I give it an A+? Because I thought he was hands down the best player from this class this year. And now, even though it was a second pick, it looks like a steal, which is hard to do at pick 2. And he helped the team tremendously. They are still alive because of that. So it's an obvious A+ for the performance grade and an obvious A+ for the value grade. They got extreme value there. There's really no other way around it. That's just what it is as of now, unless something crazy happens in the rest of his career. We're on to the third pick, though. The third pick was Quinnen Williams, who I gave an A+ to in terms of the grade, you know, the original grade, because he was my number 1 player in the draft, and I still think very, very highly of him. I still think he could be the best player in this draft when it's all said and done. So I gave him an A+ then, and now we're going to give him an A, so a slight bump down here. But, you know, I kind of blame the Jets for that. I would like for them to move him around a little more, you know, kind of just stick. They did a little bit, but kind of sticking him in that nose tackle spot. You know, Quinnen Williams, that's why he was so great at Alabama, and he's still so young, and he's got so much potential, and that's why the value grade's still at an A. You know, I still think could be a top-tier defensive lineman. The Jets just can't ruin him. You know, you got to move this guy around more. You got to use him in multiple different spots like you did at Bama. We've seen him at many spots. Performance based on the year, I gave him a B-. You know, not a whole bunch there, but his presence was felt. You know, in his big games, it was felt. You know, he stopped the run. He got after the quarterback. Not a whole bunch of sacks. I'm not a big stats guy, anyways. But I thought he made an impact. Thought his presence was felt. B minus. You definitely wish it was a little better. You kind of expected better still, but a lot of potential. The main grade here is the value grade. I give it an A, value of the pick. Next is Clelin Ferrell, and the original grade was C+. That was the original grade for me. Everybody knew it was a little early, and my problem was, you're looking at 4th overall pick. Was he number 4 on my board? No, he was down there a little bit. Definitely a first-round pick, though. And then you look at Josh Allen still on the board. That's kind of why I'd say in the C range, but why I had that plus at the end was because, they felt he was more of a fit than Josh Allen, obviously. He's more of a fit. Josh Allen didn't fit a whole bunch, so that's why I kind of added that plus in the original grade there. And then performance-wise, I think he performed at about a C+. Not a whole bunch from him. I definitely expected more, even though I already thought it was a high pick for them. And then the value grade, I'm actually going to knock it down a little bit to a C- because I don't see why they didn't go Josh Allen, especially looking at it now. Josh Allen could have fit in any defense, like I said at the time, but now it's kind of confirmed that he could fit in any defense. And it's a little confusing that Mike Mayock, did not go Josh Allen. Like it's a little confusing because it's hard to believe that he did not grade Josh Allen higher. It really is. So I think maybe the rest of the coaching staff kind of felt that Ferrell was more of a fit, and that's kind of what happened. I'm pretty confident that Mayock had a higher grade on Allen. So it doesn't look too good there. They definitely could have got better. And you see they get a guy like Max Crosby, later on. And he actually made more of an impact than Clelin Ferrell. And you can see it, that guy that was kind of like, is he a stand-up guy? Is he in the dirt guy? He even worked out for them, and they thought he was a fit. But for some reason, they didn't think Josh Allen did. So kind of passing on Josh Allen definitely plays a part in this. But when it's all said and done, I can't give to me what a bad grade is, a D or an F. Because I do like Clelin Ferrell. He's got potential. He's going to be much better than he was this year. We're not making a completed grade on him. So he's going to be a good player for them. So it's not like they missed out on taking a good player. They got one, but Josh Allen might be one of the greats from this draft class when it's all said and done. Still pretty early to say that, but based on my board, which I trust, that is the case, and based on how Josh Allen played this year. But I do like Clelin Ferrell at the end of the day. Next pick is pick 5, Devin White. Original value grade right there in April, immediately after they took him. I gave him an A, kind of where I expected him to go. Great player, very high on my board, but I had him right here, 5th best player right there. So it's not a steal. I'm looking for steals right there, for the A+, but it's a great player. They get an A. Performance-wise, you can't really play any better. He did what you asked. He did what they asked, and he was highly productive, in all phases there on defense. So A+, and then the value stays at an A because, they didn't get crazy value here. It's the pick they expected. He's a top-notch player for them, but it stays at an A there. Definitely another guy that was kind of considered for Defensive Player of the Year for me, even though it was pretty much clearly Bosa. But excellent player there in Devin White. The 6th pick was Daniel Jones. Definitely an interesting one. The original grade I gave was a D+, because I didn't have him graded as a first rounder. They took him. They did get their quarterback, though. That kind of knocks it up. They thought it was a guy that fit. So, that kind of, I guess, keeps it up to a D+. And then based on, I gave him a B this year, kind of back and forth on that. He played pretty well. He played pretty darn well throwing the ball, better than any of us expected. Fumbling is a major concern, so I guess that knocks it down a little bit. But B is still a good grade. But I'm kind of splitting the difference there. I'm going with the value right now is a C because, he did play good. He showed some promise, but it still feels like a reach to me. I don't expect his upside to be anything tremendous. There's going to be improvement. There's going to be potential. I don't expect anything, tremendous, And then kind of looking at where they are now, too. Even though he was better than expected, that's kind of why it was bumped up. But looking at where the Giants are now, they're picking 4. They're picking 4 right now, and they would potentially be able to get a much better quarterback prospect. So I think they pulled the trigger a little early there. In terms of within that draft class, the 2019 draft class, and in terms of the rebuild by year. It wasn't really necessary to go get your quarterback that early. You could have waited till this year. I mean, you did it to only get a better pick this year, the 4th overall pick. So it doesn't look good in that way, but he showed potential, and we know he can throw the ball, but still not in love with that pick here. Next is Josh Allen. We kind of talked about him already, and we're going to see A pluses all across the board. At the time, I gave it an A plus. It was tremendous value. He's a top 3 player in this draft. The Jaguars got him 7th overall. Really, nobody expected it. All the mock drafts I did, we really did not expect it. We didn't think he would fall past the Raiders, possibly. So A plus then, A plus now, because it, got to stay true to my board. We got to see his potential. We got to see that it was an absolute steal for the Jags. On top of how he played this year, he kind of proved what we all thought, that he was an excellent player. A plus grade on the season. The value grade, A plus for me. I think it was a no-brainer. 8th pick, TJ Hawkinson, a tricky one here. The original grade, I gave an A minus because I liked Hawkinson. He's one of the better tight ends I've ever scouted ever. Total package. So I liked it. Performance grade, game of C. Yeah, you got hurt here and there. It kind of plays a part, though. I mean, if you can't get bonus points or you can't get a pass if you got hurt, you missed some time. But he played for the most part, and not super productive. Not the most productive guy this year. We definitely expected a lot more. I still give it a B overall, though, because I like his potential. And he did do a good job, people are going to look at the yards and maybe say, how did I even give him as high as a C? Maybe based on the yards, maybe that was a little high. But I think he did an extremely good job blocking, which we expected from him. We saw the Lions, kind of take that next step blocking-wise, able to open things up passing when Stafford was in there at least. Did expect a little more from him, and I still think highly of him. Just the only reason why it's knocked down, not the best rookie year, plays a small part, but yeah, maybe looking at it now, maybe a tight end at pick 8 is a little early, but I do really like Hawkinson and his potential. So the value of that pick, I still give a B. Next, pick 9, we're going to see some good grades here from Ed Oliver. 9th overall to the Bills. Original grade, I gave it an A+. Right there when the Bills took it, I gave it an A+. Why? Because he was higher on my board than pick 9. I did not think the Bills were going to end up with them. It was a great value pick. Tremendous value there. They get an A+. Based on this year, his play, I give it an A-. It was one of those guys that were, I didn't expect a whole bunch of production from right away. One of those raw players with tons of potential, mainly because he played in the wrong position at Houston, and, the Bills running a 4-3. He was going to play more of a D-tackle, moving around traditional D-tackle 3 technique around those parts of the D-line. What we expected, we didn't expect a whole bunch of production. He didn't really have a whole bunch of production, but he had a pretty good amount. Started to get hot late. So I gave it an A-, but it definitely stays to an A+ because of what I explained. They got great value. It was a guy that I didn't expect to take off. I knew when putting him much higher than 9 on my big board, I knew he wasn't going to be that great right away. I knew that, but he was pretty solid right away. On top of it, everything what we knew here and some, it remains in an A+, no question about it. We're going on to the 10th pick, Devin Bush. I originally gave it an A. I like Devin Bush a lot. I thought it was great value, but the value of the pick and value of the draft picks kind of play a part. They traded away picks to come up and get that, and I'm never a huge fan of trading up. I'm never really a huge fan, but I did like Devin Bush a lot. So I still gave it an A because I love the fit. I love the pick. I gave it an A. What kept it from a plus was because they traded away picks. You have to be damn sure that he's that good and that much of a fit, which we assumed he was, but we have to be sure here. Based on his play this year, he did everything you can expect from him, everything that they needed to take that Steelers defense to the next level. So I gave an A+, and that resulted in me giving it an A+ based on the value, because now we know when you trade up, you have to be damn sure. They were sure. They were right. He's going to be a great fit for that defense for a long time. It's safe to give them an A+ based on that pick right now. So Devin Bush gets an A+ there. At pick 10, we're on to pick 11. An incomplete performance grade, obviously, from Jonah Williams. Got hurt before the year started and didn't get to play. My original grade for the pick was an A. Best offensive lineman in the draft. Bengals desperately needed one, and I'm going to remain at that because they desperately needed one. We see that. I still think they got a heck of an offensive lineman that can play guard or tackle. I think they'll put him at guard for next year. And we can see, they need one badly. It's going to work. As long as he stays healthy, it's going to work in the long run. But obviously, we have an incomplete grade for the 2019 performance. But I still like that pick, and it's going to help them this year with their quarterback to be, which we expect to be Joe Burrow. So that could be big time. They can look. It's going to look like they're going to have 2 first-round picks this year because Jonah Williams is coming back. So I still very much like that pick, obviously. We're on the next pick, pick 12 overall. The Packers took Rashawn Gary. Definitely one of the more confusing ones. If you remember me talking about at the time, it's even more confusing now. I did give it a B at the time because I did really like Gary's potential, and he still has tremendous potential. And I kind of was confident with the Packers with they had confidence that he fit, and that was kind of my problem. If you remember, if you watched us, if you listened to all my draft videos back then, even the post-draft, I had a problem with the fit here. I thought he was strictly a 4-3 end. That was me. I thought he was strictly a 4-3 end. I had, the Packers running a 3-4. I had confidence that they saw what they needed to see, that he can definitely play 3-4 outside linebacker, and I still gave him a B because the potential on top of it. Performance-wise, yeah, he wasn't on the field a lot, but that kind of plays a part. And that goes in a D. If it would be worse if he played a lot, I guess, and if he played a lot and he didn't perform that well, but at the same time he's behind some 2 good pass rushers as well. But I still gave it a D because at the end of the day he didn't get on the field and he wasn't all that productive, didn't make a whole lot of noise, and that leads me with a bump down in the grade because. At a C- because I still really don't like the fit, but it's also confusing because the Packers knew they got the big-time free agents in the 2 Smiths at the pass rush position in their 3-4. They knew they got those guys, free agencies before the draft. I don't know what made them see that they needed this guy that badly. I really wish he was on a 4-3. No, I got confidence in him. He'll be good for them, but he'd be more of a rotation guy. Wondering if they can convert him to 3-4 end. I thought that was more of a possibility at the time than a 4-3 outside linebacker. Still unlikely, but yeah, just think about what the Packers are. They're in the NFC Championship at the time of recording this. They could use a 12th overall type player right now. They could use, I'm wondering if they would have taken Devin Bush if he was here. That's definitely a possibility, but they could use, a player of need right now, and that's why it's a little tough. But I'm not doubting the guy's potential. He's a good player. Got a bright future, but it is a very confusing pick here. They definitely could use some different help there in Green Bay here down the road in their great season. Next is Christian Wilkins. Originally gave an A. He was high on my board, Christian Wilkins. I still like Wilkins. He's a good player. Performance-wise, didn't do a whole lot this year. C-. Yeah, he didn't have a lot of talent around him, but then didn't do a whole lot this year. I expected way more, and that bumps down the value grade because this was a type of guy that I thought was more pro-ready. I don't think there was going to be a difference in his play, the first couple years than, maybe, at the end of his career. I didn't think there was going to be that much of a difference. It was more of the pro-ready, going to play out of his mind early, not a whole bunch of potential, some potential. So it concerns me a little bit, but at the same time, we're only going to be in his second year. He's going to be, there's no doubt he's going to be a good player. No doubt that he's going to get better. Especially with more, when there's better players around him. Maybe a little concerning that he didn't produce a little more. But overall, I do like Wilkins, but I gave it a B there. And yeah, I expected a little more maybe this year. Next pick was the Falcons. Was a little confusing at the time, the reach for Chris Lindstrom. What was funny was going into the draft, I was kind of preaching the Falcons need offensive line. Falcons need offensive line real bad. They took a big drop this year, meaning last year in their play, and a lot of people were disagreeing with me. A lot of people were really, really mad at me for saying that. I think it was a lot of Falcons fans saying there's no way they're taking offensive linemen. There's no way. And the funniest part about it is not only did they take one, they reached for one, and they took 2 in the first round. But even though I thought they needed to take one, I did not think they should reach for some guys. Lindstrom, obviously they saw a fit, that it was a need, so even though it was a big-time reach according to my board, I still kept it at a C because it was a fit, it was a need, a desperate need in my opinion. And then performance grade, C. He missed some games. That plays a part. He played okay when he was in. He's got potential. He'll play better. And everything's staying at a C. There's really nothing that changes my mind here all across the board, honestly. It was a huge need at the end of the day. It was a reach. It was a huge need. That's kind of what it was. We're moving on to the 15th pick. Dwayne Haskins, and I may actually surprise some people with these grades here, especially the stat watchers. You gotta love those stat watcher people that don't watch the games. But original value grade I gave right there in April, right after I was hyped about this pick. I love the fit. I gave it an A+. I actually liked Drew Lock. Drew Lock was better on my board, but didn't change anything. I liked Haskins still. I liked his upside. I liked the fit. And when do you get a starting caliber quarterback at pick 15? That's kind of the main thing that plays in that A+ there. When do you get a starting caliber quarterback at 15? I was in love with it. All right, so I gave it an A+, and then that's really not a surprise. The rest of the grades might be a surprise to some people, maybe the stat watchers. Performance grade, I gave it a B-. And first glance, I mean, if you want to look at Haskins' stats, they weren't the prettiest. You know, I'd seen much worse. So they weren't really bad, I'd call them. But you look at the situation, I absolutely hate when you throw rookie quarterbacks into terrible situations, like absolutely terrible situations. And I'm not talking about like, you know, week 2 or whatever. I'm talking about like, yeah, when we already have a feeling the season's over. I mean, we already pretty much know the season's over. You throw them in there. It has failed so many quarterbacks so many times. I've been talking about this for so long too. It's just, you might as well sit him. You might as well just sit him on the bench. Don't even let him do anything. So they throw him in there. In his first couple games, he's terrible. I think the first game was 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, you know, for those stat people out there. And the second game might have been around the same thing, 2 interceptions. And then, you know, since getting thrown in the terrible situation, he's picked it up. He picked up, I guess, it didn't really get much better for the team, but he kind of did, I don't want to say the unthinkable, but it doesn't happen often. You know, he played quite well down the stretch. And I see promise, I see potential, and that was while the coaching changed, a disaster. The offensive line's not blocking too well for him. He only has 1 receiver. I thought he played pretty well. I don't really value those first couple games a lot, so I still gave it a B-. Obviously, it wasn't great play. What I didn't like was staring down receivers sometimes, throwing it into triple coverage. You know, I don't like those things, but, you know, it's a rookie. So I gave it a B- still. And the value, I'm kind of sticking with the A range. You know, I knocked it down a little bit because there was some things I didn't like. And then maybe this was right around the range he should have went, 15. But at the end of the day, it still isn't every day that you get a starting caliber quarterback at 15. And I like the fit. I mean, he had Terry McLaurin there too. I like the group of backs if they're healthy. That if they, we even got Bryce Love coming back. You know, I like the mesh of the team. They got a lot of potential. I still like it. I still like it. So I might surprise people by that, but the people that know, they shouldn't really be too surprised. You know, if you know the game here. So he got thrown into a pretty terrible situation. I thought picked it up, pretty well there. 16, Brian Burns, original grade was an A, about where I thought he would go. I'm pretty sure I mocked him to the Panthers several times. So no surprises there, but I do like the player. I did like the fit. I did like the need, so that's why it's still at an A, but nothing tremendous in terms of value, so it didn't have the plus next to it. Performance grade, he played at an A+, because, maybe he didn't play at the level of Nick Bosa or Josh Allen, but Brian Burns was one of those guys that was, I didn't expect it. Kind of like if you watched my take on the Bills and Ed Oliver, it's the same thing. Totally different player, but same thing. I thought was raw, wasn't going to perform super high right away, and it was going to be okay, and he played at an extremely high level given that. So performance-wise, I gave it an A+ for that reason, and value-wise, I gave it an A+ for that reason because, they got exactly what they needed, exactly the fit to their new defense that they switched to. Now they switch coaches again, but I think, looking at a rebuild team here, a lot of free agents on defense, they're going the new route on offense. I think you almost build the defense around Brian Burns. Sounds pretty crazy, but I feel like that's what you do. So I'm very impressed with him. I love that pick for the Panthers. Made a whole bunch of sense. Next pick was the Giants, a guy that I was very high on, Dexter Lawrence. I was probably higher on him than anybody. I gave it an A+ value because he was well in the top 10 on my big board because he was an already proven run-stuffing defense nose tackle, actually, that has potential to add pass rush to his game, even though he had pretty much no pass rush production in college. I saw the traits that he could provide more pass rush as his career went on, but he was already a proven run stuffer. That's kind of what we saw in his first year. I didn't expect a whole bunch of pass rush ability, and he actually brought maybe a little more than people thought. He brought some good pressure. So he wasn't outstanding this year, but kind of right where he would be. I'm remaining with the A+. They needed to replace Snacks. People weren't happy about them trading Snacks and drafting him. To me, it made a lot of sense. I mean, Snacks was everything. It's what you needed to do, and there is a limited amount of nose tackles like Dexter Lawrence too. There's a rare amount of them. So I love the pick. He's gonna be great. He might be known as the best nose tackle in football in no time, and I'm kind of trusting my board there. And but it's not like he didn't show it on the field this year. He's shown some very good promise. 18th pick. Garrett Bradbury, the Vikings, another tricky one here. I gave an A at the time. Vikings desperately needed this for their new scheme. They needed pretty much any offensive line, but the center was the main piece, the zone blocking scheme. Value-wise, I thought that's, was a pretty good pick for them. So I gave him an A. Performance-wise, I gave him a C+ this year. He was for the most part, was pretty damn good in run blocking. Pass blocking was a nightmare for the most part. So you kind of got to split the difference there. At the end of the day, the Vikings offensive line went from the very worst in football last year to still pretty bad, but much better than last year. And Bradbury was a key piece, mainly to the running game, which you see the turnaround in the running game too. But I gave it a C+ because pass blocking is very important, and it didn't go too well this year. So you see it gets bumped down a bit in the value. He's got potential. He's going to get better. In pass blocking, well, he better be getting better in that area. But he'll get better. I still believe in his potential, but I definitely got to knock it down because there are some concerns. And kind of what I actually thought all along, but even though I did really like the fit here, is that if it's not, it's kind of my thing, and I kind of think it even more now, if it's not an elite offensive lineman, so if it's not a top 10 worthy offensive lineman, I'm almost waiting to the second and third round, because we've seen, just kind of looking back at the past, looking at the past and what's worked out, it just seems like there's really not much of a difference looking at history between the mid to late first and the second round. I mean, the Vikings' best offensive lineman is Brian O'Neill. They found that guy in the second round. He was, not close to being pro ready. Turned out he was best offensive lineman last year and this year. So, yeah, I think almost they may prefer that now too, just kind of waiting for the offensive lineman. So we'll see. So it gets knocked down a little bit. I do really like his run blocking. There was games where he looked like a monster run blocking. So that's kind of the upside there. 19 is Jeffrey Simmons. Gave him an A- at the time. I like Jeffrey Simmons. If it wasn't for the injury, top 10. There was a lot of risk in that pick, but I really, really liked him, so that's why I'd say in that A range, but the risk kind of dropped that minus in there. Performance grade this year, he missed a lot of games because of that injury. He's played pretty darn well since he's been back in. Would like to see him play more. They're kind of limiting him. B+ is what I gave him. Still played pretty well for the games he's played, but now I gave him an A+ because he was a top 10 player. He's a dominant player. We can see that he's going to get better, and the only concern was the injury, and he came back a lot earlier than people expected, and he's able to play. Looks fine to me. He's a heck of a ball player. So I really like that pick for the Titans. We already know it's working out unless the injury, I guess, comes back. No reason to believe that, though. So A+ for the Titans there. And then the Broncos, this one's an interesting one, very interesting one. Original grade, I gave an A-. And what went into the A- was the Broncos trading back. I love gaining more picks. As long as if you trade out of the first and you gain picks, then yeah, I'm not really a fan of that. You still want a first-round player. They trade back. They gain picks to make later picks, crucial second-round picks possible. Keep in mind, I wasn't super high on Noah Fant. I wasn't, I liked him in the first round, but I wasn't like super high on him. But it was a need. It was a fit. Yeah, something they definitely needed. And I liked him. Don't get me wrong. I liked him. Just wasn't super, super high on him like everyone else. But they gained picks, so it's kind of that A-. I liked that they gained those picks at the same time of getting a first-round player. And then you watch him this year, yeah, I'd say around an A-. He did everything he expected. He was kind of one of those raw players at the same time. Maybe we didn't expect this much production. Played very well for them. He's a crucial part of their offense now. We've seen that down the stretch. So I liked his play. A-. Nothing outstanding, but I liked his play A-. So where do I come up with the A+ on the grade? He played, maybe he played a little better than I expected right away. I like his game. I like the fit. And then we look at the picks they gained with this while getting this first-round player, that went part of this pick, that they gained picks that made Drew Lock and Dalton Risner possible. So I really like this move. You see that big main grade is more of the pick. What was going on with the pick? It's not so much the player. So that, last year when I did this, people got kind of confused on what my grading system was. So I really like that. I like Fant for the Broncos, and I liked what they did here to gain picks. Next is the Packers and Darnell Savage. I wasn't super high on this pick when it happened. I gave him a C-. I thought he was more of a late second-round player, just pure athleticism with some upside. So I gave it a C-. I thought maybe a little early there. And then performance grade this year, I gave him a B+. He played pretty darn well. Still some things you need to work on, things that we saw at Maryland, some kind of, sometimes angles, making the appropriate angles to make the tackle. He has the athleticism. Very good in coverage, back there. So I increased the value grade definitely because he ended up being better than maybe I expected right away, but mainly because I think he's a really good pair with Amos back there. I think that's just the correct pairing back there. So the Packers definitely saw what fit their defense. What they imagine without having a safety, without Savage or another draft pick at the same position at this pick. They'd kind of be a mess back there. So it was definitely a huge need. I think it's a very good fit. I think he's the right guy next to Amos. So I bumped it up to a B+. I do, the only thing is I do still trust my board and what I saw this year that Taylor Rapp and Juan Thornhill were the best safeties in the class. I do trust that, and I do think they are. But Savage was definitely impressive. So that definitely gets bumped way up there. Next pick was the Eagles. Another tricky one because he didn't have the best year when he played. You can see the huge difference between Jason Peters and Andre Dillard. I know one's a rookie, one was all-pro left tackle at one point. You see the big difference. He didn't play so hot this year. I still believe in his potential. I gave it an A at the time. Knock it down a little bit because, when do you come across a left tackle like that at pick 22 when you desperately need to find a replacement for Jason Peters like now because he's getting close to retirement and because, at the time, even now, the injuries building up. So, I still like it. Yeah, I was a little disappointed in his play, though. Gets knocked down a little bit. But, yeah, you don't really come across that. I think it was an obvious pick at the time. Next, another offensive lineman. Texans take Titus Howard. I liked Titus Howard. Just didn't really like him in the first. Kind of thought it was a very early second-round pick. Gave it a B- because I did like Titus Howard. But kind of things I just explained. I did like Titus Howard. It was a need, so I kind of kept it. To me, a B- is still a good grade. It was a little early. That's the reason for the minus. This year, I missed some time, and I guess he could have played better, but it was a tough situation. So C for this year. I'm keeping it the same value grade because I still believe in him. I still believe it was a little early, but it'll work out. It's kind of comforting, I guess, refreshing, knowing that the Texans are going to come back next year. They made it pretty far this year. They're going to come back next year. They're going to have a second year Titus Howard, healthier, hopefully. So it's kind of the good news there. But B- where I got it. 24 is another interesting one. Raiders take Josh Jacobs. At the time, I gave it a B+. Josh Jacobs was hands down my number one running back in the draft. I love Josh Jacobs, as a player, as a prospect, but I gave it a B+ because I thought, at the time I thought, running back, do you really, in this class, do you take a running back, in the first round? I thought they could have waited a little bit to take him. That was kind of my feeling at the time, even though I know he was a strong Rookie of the Year candidate. But then you look at his performance this year, A+, played outstanding, improved that offense, not just the running game, but he opened up the passing game. So played absolutely outstanding, and that leaves me with an A+ too for the value because we look at it now, and teams would have loved to have Josh Jacobs higher than 24. So now it actually looks like an absolute steal. We knew he was a clear best running back, but I guess there was some questions because he didn't have a whole bunch of reps. And he was playing in that system in Alabama. So I guess there was there weren't major concerns, some slight questions, concerns. But now we know, and it looks like a steal at 24, actually. So I still think they could have waited a little longer, so I don't think I'm wrong on that aspect. But it definitely feels like a steal based on how he played because I think other teams would love to have him. So it's a pretty interesting one there. But a great player in Josh Jacobs. 25 is Marquise Brown. I gave it an A+ at the time because I thought he would definitely go earlier than 25. I also thought it was a tremendous fit with Lamar Jackson. Performance grade this year, B+. Played very well when he was in. And I bumped it down a little bit to an A because this is, now we're seeing it now. This is probably where he should have went. The durability concerns is, that's the concern, I guess. So I do bump it down a little bit, but I still really like Hollywood for that offense. He's a big-time player. Really, their only receiver that can make a huge impact right now. Just staying healthy, sometimes getting a little beat up, maybe because of his size to come out of the game. It's the only thing I don't like. Looking for complete steals and really not too many flaws for the A+, but he's right there, and he'll be a heck of a player in that offense for a long time. 26th pick, Montez Sweat, gave it an A+ because he was a top 10 player on my board, and he was another one of those players that was Yeah, you don't expect a whole bunch from right away, kind of the raw player. It reminded me a lot of Danielle Hunter of the Vikings, who didn't have a lot of production out of LSU. And then as soon as those defensive coaches worked with him, he's one of the better pass rushers in football. It reminded me of Sweat and Danielle Hunter. And we get a pretty good rookie season from a raw player, pretty productive rookie season. I give it an A on the year, and then I still stick by it. It's a tremendous value here. They got their pass rusher of the future. Hopefully along with Chase Young. Ryan Kerrigan was great for a long time for them. They may be able to, and still could be. They want to keep him. But, drafting Sweat makes it so you can pair him with Chase Young, and then being able to do that makes you be able to maybe trade a guy like Kerrigan, possibly get more picks. So it ends up an all positive thing here. And, I really like this pick. A lot of value in this pick. I thought it was a steal. He's going to be a great pass rusher. 27th pick, another Mississippi State player, incomplete grade. He played part of the first game, got hurt for the Raiders, so we're not going to make a grade based on this year. I gave it a B at the time, so I'm going to stick with the B now. I thought maybe he was an early second-round player, but here we are, pick 27. It's pretty much right there. There's not too much of a difference except for the round 1, round 2 next to his name right there in the graphic. Not too much of a difference. I like the potential of him. It's kind of what they needed, just not super in love with the pick. So I gave it a B, We're on to pick 28, Jerry Tillery. Another one I like the fit. Didn't do a whole bunch this year. Definitely expected more. Kind of like Christian Wilkins, where I thought he was more like a pro-ready guy, not insane potential, some potential. So I guess I was a little disappointed that he didn't have more top-notch play this year, or better play, I should say. So I gave it a C+, but still solid. Originally, I gave it the value grade of an A- because I really love the fit. Pretty sure I mocked Tillery, the Chargers, a lot. Really love the fit. And I'm still going to give it a pretty good grade, bump it down a little bit, because, I like the fit. They're going to need, they have their edge guys set. They're going to need the interior guys going forward, and they have Tillery because of this draft pick. And I just really like the idea of him in that defense, kind of more inside Ingram. It's a guy that can play better when, with Ingram around him, and Ingram missed some games this year too, so that could play a part too. But I like the fit there for Tillery. He'll definitely continue to get better. Next was L.J. Collier, another strange one, interesting one. Pick 29, another one of those guys I had an early second round grade on, if you remember. And here we are, pick 29. We're basically in the second round, so you're not going to get deducted that many points there. I gave it a B, and the reason for the B is, I wasn't blown away by the pick because maybe it was a little early in terms of the big board, just a tiny bit. If you remember, my problem was the fit, but I also was confident they would use him right. And what I mean by that is I had him graded as a 3-4 defensive end, and the Seahawks run a 4-3. But usually what you do if the 3-4 defensive ends most of the time get taken by 4-3 teams, they usually have a nice plan for them, maybe as a 3 technique. So I was confident that's what they were going to do. I did not think he was an edge rusher. I think he was good at pass rushing from a 3-4 end spot on TCU. And sometimes would slide into what would be a 3 technique spot. That's different than an edge rusher. So I was a little concerned, but I really thought they were going to do what they were doing with Quentin Jefferson, and ended up stepping up big time this year, kind of move him around a bit down there. He's not really an edge rusher, but I thought that's kind of what they would do, and I was confident in that, even though he didn't go to I preferred a 3-4 team. And that's not the case. They had him as an edge rusher, and he just couldn't get on the field. When he did get on the field, there was just nothing there. Couldn't get off blocks. He's not athletic enough because he's not an edge rusher. Said at the time, even though I was confident that they would get him in the right spot, and I'm saying it again, that he's not an edge rusher. So he definitely gets an F on the year. He definitely has potential, though, and that's why it stays at a D, or it's not an F. You can't doubt the guy's potential. And I almost trying to, Quentin Jefferson's a free agent. Maybe they can put Collier in kind of his spot and do what I thought, moving around, 3 technique in the interior. But now I don't know if I'm thinking that. They disappointed me the first time around when I gave him that B. So I don't know. I like Collier as a football player. Don't get me wrong, but he's not an edge rusher. He's not an edge rusher to me. So this is, I guess, maybe one of the more incomplete ones because. And it kind of shows that this video is maybe way too early to do, but it can't hurt. It's always fun to see, the thoughts on the players after year one report card of the picks. But yeah, we'll see what they do. I wish he went to, a three. Even the Seahawks, they don't really, strictly have the 4-3 base look. Sometimes Clowney's off the ball. So, I mean, I think he could be inside Clowney. That would, even if it's like a DN spot, it's almost kind of goes back to being a 3-4 end, inside of Clowney. Like, they can still make it work because they don't have a strict, 4-3 defense. That's not what Seattle is at all. So I think he could have worked there. What we should do here is we should have the Packers and the Seahawks flip Rashawn Gary for LJ Collier because that would be much better fits. I think the Packers would need a little more in that trade. LJ Collier would help the Packers. I just thought of that now, just as I'm recording this, even though it's never going to happen. It's just so interesting. LJ Collier would fit at 3-4 end and help the Packers tremendously, and Rashawn Gary would be the 4-3 end, opposite of if they re-sign Clowney at this point for Seattle. Obviously, Seattle didn't have that high of a pick to get Rashawn Gary. That's why it doesn't really make sense. But we get more fits that way. And we'll throw something the Packers' way. That makes some sense there. Let's see if we can get a deal done over there. Long shots, but I'm looking for better fits. LJ Collier in Seattle is not it unless they don't re-sign Quentin Jefferson and have LJ Collier try to fill that role, tough role to fill because Quentin Jefferson was a very good player this year. Giants, DeAndre Baker, gave it a B at the time, kind of where I thought he would go. They traded up for it. Don't really like giving away picks. But I do like Baker. They needed corners, so I gave it a B. B- on the year. It was a tough one to grade because, he got the starting job. He played a lot as the starter. He played as the number one corner a lot, especially when Jenkins was gone. So, that's good to get the reps. He did get beat a lot, but kind of what do you expect from a rookie corner? It's tough to play corner in today's NFL, too. Maybe the hardest position to play after quarterback and, in general. So, I was okay. Showed some promise, and, I'm kind of sticking what I thought on that. I didn't really love trading up, giving away picks. But, yeah, I think a good corner in a need. It was a need at the time, too. So, I think he'll be a good corner for them. So, no really reason to change that. And then back to the Falcons, we talked about how they needed an offensive line. That was obvious to me beforehand. But they reached up there a bit for two offensive linemen. They traded back in for this one. I thought McGarry was a second-round pick, not even really an early second-round pick. And they trade back in and take him. So I gave it a C. It was obviously a giant need, so I didn't really want to give him a D for that. Huge need for them going forward, in my opinion. Performance grade, yeah, didn't play so hot, but shown some promise for the future, I guess. So I gave it a C. And I bumped it up a little bit because he got the experience down, looked like he was getting better. It's definitely a fit, a need for them for the long run because the offensive line was heading definitely south quick. So I guess I don't mind it as much, but I still, obviously being in the C range, I just don't really like it that much there. So yeah, it was still, I knew they needed offensive linemen, but I was still very confused about those. They dove too much into these specific fits, which I hate when teams do that. But at the same time, you can't really blame them because they got Matt Ryan back there. You need the right offensive line for your system, but man, if you're almost willing to reach for guys that specifically fit, because you don't have a lot of time left with Matt Ryan, you're almost better off going in the rebuild mode. Going straight rebuild and kind of getting getting the better offensive lineman and almost building around that. I know it should start with the quarterback. A tricky situation the Falcons were in, mainly because they don't have a whole bunch of time. They're trying to get a quick rebuild there on the offensive line for Matt Ryan. And the offensive line had another off year this year, but they had two young guys in there. Lindstrom was also hurt. And the last pick was N'Keal Harry, which I absolutely loved. Is my favorite pick of the first round. I gave him an A+. Performance-wise, it was tough to give him a C+, because, yeah, he did get hurt. I guess that plays a part. He wasn't on the field, so that's kind of a, it's negative points there, really. And I expected more when he was on the field, but when he got the ball, at the same time, when he got the ball, he made some things happen. You see it. He made some things happen. I'm still giving it an A because I love N'Keal Harry. I love his game. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a good football player for them. It's going to be interesting to see who's throwing to him. But Courtland Sutton was my number one receiver, a year ago. Well, I guess 2 years ago now. The 2018 draft, Courtland Sutton was my number one receiver. Really, nobody had Courtland Sutton. Not too many people had Courtland Sutton number one. I was very, very confident. It was a landslide number one. We didn't see a whole bunch from him in rookie year. And the second year, we saw an insane jump. He's got a lot of – the guy's going to be special. I see something similar from N'Keal Harry. Something similar can happen here. I see, think about coming off the injury too, the way he's played. And I don't really think there's anything wrong with the way he's played. Brady didn't have a whole bunch of time. He was off target in a lot of throws. I think next year, I think this kid, as long as he's healthy, is going to have a big time year. So I'm sticking true to my board there. He's got tremendous upside. Just fully recover. I don't think he fully recovered from that injury. I kind of can see that in his step, the way he moved. But at the same time, every time he got the ball in his hands, he made a play. Wish they would have done a little more. When they were in the red zone, they kind of went away from him. Put him on the end. Goal line fade to N'Keal Harry. That's the game right there. I cannot believe they didn't try that. Wish they would have tried maybe some more screen passes, some more end arounds to him in the red zone. That's kind of where they were flawed a little bit. So interesting, very interesting. But I 100% trust in N'Keal Harry, no doubt in my mind. So we'll see. We can always come back to this, to drafts like way further down the line and regrade. When in the appropriate time, when you can, make judgment. We've seen players go, bad to good, based on their first year. We've seen good players all of a sudden fall apart. Sometimes it's crazy injuries, coaching changes that ruin players. Hopefully some of these players don't get ruined by the way they're being used. It happens. But we'll have full NFL draft coverage already starting. We got plenty of mock drafts, full NFL draft coverage. This is where this channel started. Off-season coverage, free agency coverage, and we got all kinds of predictions and rankings. Videos every single day, all year long here at the GOAT House. We got 2 channels. Please subscribe to both. Link in the description and the comments for both, and for our Twitter, which has constant NFL talk on there, always talking football. So subscribe, follow all that. Would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching this video. That's going to do it. Goodbye.